Psalm 22, verses 17 through 18. If you're watching this when it was first posted, it's Good Friday, at least where I am. And so thank you for taking a few moments to study this particular psalm together. And we're reaching a really interesting point in the narrative, very fitting that we study this on Good Friday. We're going to find out more about the opponents of the psalmist and what's happening to him. So, ex erithmesa panta ta ostamu, autoide katenoesan ke ep edon me. Then verse 18, dia marisanta tahamatia mu heautois, ke epitan himatisman mu ebalon kleron. We begin with this first verb here, which is from ex arithmeo, first singular aorist active indicative. And so I can count, or I have counted. You can probably see the arithmetic underneath the hood there. So I count, or have counted, panta all ta asta mu. So I count all my bones, but they, so you have a de there. So I can count all my bones. In other words, he is just wasting away, but they, even as he is there in this suffering, first verb, katanoe-san. Now we move to an aorist third plural. Katanoe means to look at, to consider, maybe for a period of time, but then the ep edon me, ephorao, third plural aorist active indicative once more. You could take this as observe, or perhaps even like overlook, look away from, depending on how, paraphrased you want to get. So he's like, I'm in such a bad situation. I can even see all my bones, but they look at me, they consider me, they observe me, but they do nothing. That's the basic idea here. And you can feel the pathos if you, again, apply this to the cross of Jesus. Everyone is staring at him. He is present before them all, hanging there, and they're just looking and doing nothing. They've shouted insults, as we've seen in prior videos. And then a fairly familiar verse here. Diamarizo means to divide, third plural aorist middle here. So they have divided tahimatia, so my clothing, heautois, among themselves. And then epitan himatisman, so you can see there's a relationship there. So both of these basically mean clothing, or this could be something like for my garment or my cloak, something like that. Ebalon, this is going to be from balo. But with the E plus the stem chain, it's going to be aorist, third plural. They have cast kleron, a lot. So everyone's staring at him, but now as he is counting his bones, he's suffering and so forth, they divided his garments and cast a lot for his cloak or his clothing. And on that note, this is very, very familiar. So in the synoptics, we see this very thing referenced in Matthew 27, as well as Mark 15 and Luke 22. What's interesting is that none of those three synoptic writers tell you really that they're quoting. So Matthew says, when they had crucified him, they divided his garments by casting a lot, which is essentially a combination of this diamarizo with the casting a lot from the next line. Mark does basically the same thing. Luke does basically the same thing. None of them actually say, as it is written or something like that. John, though, comes along and he does make it a bit more clear what's happening. He said, they said to one another, let us not split it, that is his clothing, but let us obtain by lot concerning whose it will be, in order that the scripture would be fulfilled, directly referring back to this psalm. They divided my garments among them, and for my clothing they cast a lot. More or less verbatim what we saw in the Septuagint here. Then the soldiers did these things. So it's a crushing moment where as Jesus is hanging there, about to breathe his last, everyone's just watching, doing nothing, shouting at him. The soldiers who have crucified him divvy up the spoils of war, so to speak. They divide up his garments as like take-home prizes in fulfillment of Psalm 22, which is really interesting because once again we see that the bystanders, the soldiers, the Pharisees, and so forth, unwittingly, although from their perspective, it's clearly by divine providence, from the divine perspective, they are enacting this psalm. They are doing exactly what this psalm said they would do. Jesus has already taken it as his own in verse 1. We've seen all the different bits and pieces come into play, and then they are playing out this script, really fulfilling Scripture. They're bringing about the very purposes of God encoded, prefigured in Psalm 22, applying it directly to Jesus, but in this negative, malevolent way. So a very sad scene as we reflect on this psalm pointing to Jesus and really being lived out by him. It's not just pointing to him, it's his psalm. So thus ends verses 17 and 18.